So in this fourth video in the series, I thought I'd talk about another recurring major project, which was the Windscreen Project. So I mentioned the Windscreen Project, I think, again in the early introduction, and it has been one of my more inspired and probably stranger projects. And again, it goes back to the recurring theme about immersion. I kind of had this concept that I was actually trying to build a plane that looked like the Piper Tomahawk, that didn't just rely on the graphics on the screen and was as immersive as it could be. I think I finally accepted that it's only going to be a simulator, and unless I build one of these big 737 or Airbus simulators that we all see on some of these amazing YouTube clips, then I am probably just going to have to accept that it's going to fall a little bit short of a real plane. But the windscreen was an attempt to get closer to that. So here's a plan of the windscreen when it was conceived, and you can see that it started out really with just a large piece of perspex from B&Q. I cut the wood, the bottom base, with a 45-degree angle, and then gently bent the perspex around and fixed it on with some screws and some little rubber washers. So the first version, I didn't take account of the fact that as I bent the windscreen round, the top would actually move down, and so I had to fill, you can see here, I had to fill the top with another piece of plastic. It worked quite well. I think it was quite immersive. The pillars were covered in fabric, and I covered the ceiling, the roof of the simulator windscreen in fabric as well. I was quite pleased with that, but quite early on I think the strain was just a bit too much, and the polystyrene started to show some very small hairline cracks. So I got dismantled. And the second version tried to learn from the mistakes of the first. So this time the actual bend in the bottom, I did a little bit less. I took a lot more time fitting the polystyrene, and was really careful to not tighten the screws too much on the perspex where it came against the wood. Again, it was covered in, you can see it was covered in two different types of leatherette fabric, and I think this version was actually better. I'd taken account of the angle at the top, so it didn't actually get cut off this time, and it lasted a while, and it was actually quite immersive. I enjoyed using it. You can see actually on the panel I'd added a couple of extra bits, so I went down to get some clip-on sun visors from Halfords actually. These were both of them, which kind of added to the kind of realism of the windscreen. And I also covered the screws again with some car edging strips, some chrome self-adhesive car edging strip, which finished it off actually quite nicely. And that lasted for a while, but then it again started to show cracks. I think in the box room, because it got light and sun from the window, that must have actually affected the polystyrene. It caused it to become quite brittle, and then disaster. One day the right hand side of the screen just cracked completely, and it was all the way back to square one again. So I had to go back to the drawing board, and this was a lot of research to work out what I could do to get a covering that would work with the windscreen. And eventually I found this this product online, which was Lexan. It's like a polycarbonate clear plastic, and you can see here it was much bigger than I thought it was when it actually arrived and was delivered, and it was perfect. It is much more flexible, much thinner, and much more pliable, so it actually fitted onto the base more effectively. And because it was wider, it meant that I could be much more effective at cutting at a slightly different angle and getting the top piece of wood that provided the roof of the windscreen to be much more level and to fit much better. As it was fitted to the simulator, I decided that actually it still looked a little bit shot off, and that I probably could have some bulkheads on the front. So you can see here I started to design some bulkheads made out of some really basic corrugated sheeted plastic, again from B&Q. I spent a lot of time in B&Q, and just sticking them with the glue gun, literally just running a stand knife down one joint and bending them, and then fitting them to the front of the simulator. Initially they were just hung on, but that didn't really work, and so I wrestled with what was the best way to make them able to be put on the simulator and taken off easily. And here you can see I came up with some these are magnetic cupboard catches, 3 of them just screwed into the windscreen, with the other side the metal plate on the bulkheads, and they can just be clipped on and clipped off. And if you saw in the previous video about the slider project, and that's why that was important, because when the simulator slid away, there simply wasn't room for the windscreen to be left on it, and so it needed to be packed away above the main screen. And here you can see the simulator being packed away, with the bulkheads being taken off and the windscreen being packed above, and then in reverse it can be rolled out, the windscreen added, the bulkheads clipped back on, and it's good to go. And then the final addition was I fixed the track IR, which is great to just pick up your head movement in the main simulator to the top of the screen. And I'll say a little bit more in a hardware video a bit later on around the panels and the track IR, if that's helpful. And then the final tweak was just to bring it all in line with the blacker covering on the simulator. I got some Rust-Oleum fabric paint, which is fantastic, and resprayed the leather just to bring the black in line with the wider simulator. And I really think it's covered really well, and I'm really happy with what it looks like now. So that's the windscreen project. Again, I hope these videos are useful. They are, for me, they're an interesting voyage back into some of my projects. Interested in your comments if you've got any. Interested what else you think I could cover. And that's all I've got for you this time, and I'll catch you next time.